Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com. Meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, December 22nd. Well, the Arctic blast that we've been tracking for several days now is plunging southward into Texas and spreading eastward into the upper part of the Midwest, where there currently exists some blizzard watches and warnings. The leading edge of this Arctic air mass will arrive in the I-95 corridor region of the Mid-Atlantic on Friday morning, and it will not go unnoticed. Temperatures will plunge in the immediate aftermath of this frontal system, some 30, maybe even 40 degrees in just a short period of time. In fact, in parts of Wyoming, there was a 40-degree drop in just a period of about 10 minutes from this Arctic blast that again is spreading southward and eastward, arrives in the eastern U.S. on Friday. Let's take a look at the current NOAA weather warnings map just to see the wide range of conditions and how this this Arctic air mass is impacting much of the nation. First of all, in orange here you see blizzard warnings right now, and this is the region where that Arctic air is expanding to the east. It's also pushing to the south as well into Texas. All kinds of watches and warnings there. The pink here throughout much of the Ohio Valley and the Midwest represent winter storm warnings, where they'll get some accumulating snow in addition to the bitter cold air and the powerful wind gusts. In the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic region, it's hard to see it right here, but there's some green showing up. Those are actually flash flood watches. Significant rainfall event coming to the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. from later today into tonight and actually into the early morning hours on Friday. Could even include some thunderstorm activity. So all kinds of weather across the nation. In the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S., really the next 36 hours or so will be include some wild and crazy weather from about noon today to about midnight tomorrow night. Everything from heavy rainfall to include thunderstorms, possible localized flash flooding, a surge in temperatures on the front end of this Arctic blast, all the way into the 50s by later tonight into early tomorrow in parts of the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. Then a plunge in temperatures all the way down to single digits by later tomorrow night, early Saturday morning. Dangerous wind chills, maybe even a burst of snow that can produce a coating to an inch or two along the I-95 corridor region, really all the way to the East Coast. Quite an amazing time period over the next 36 to 48 hours or so. Well, let's take a look at last night's zero-Z run of the GFS. This is the operational version. We're looking at the 850 millibar temperature anomalies. And again, this Arctic blast is now dropping southward into Texas, and it's also expanding to the east into the upper part of the Midwest. And there are blizzard warnings already out across a good part of the upper Midwest. Let's move forward here, and we'll notice also in the eastern part of the nation, look at this surge of much milder conditions. Low pressure is intensifying today in the eastern U.S. It'll take an inland track, and that will allow for stiffening, increasingly strong east to southeast winds that will pump in milder air well above freezing by later today and tonight. Some of the rain in some of the far northern western suburbs along I-95 actually began or will begin as a wintry mix, but that will be brief as temperatures should surge to well above freezing by later today. And here we are by late tonight into early Friday, and this right here marks the leading edge of this Arctic air mass with intensely cold air to the west and quite warm air for this time of the year up to the north and east. And again, right in this region right here will be that frontal system as of about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. It just blasts through the I-95 corridor region tomorrow morning and off the coast by midday or early afternoon, and we'll keep pushing forward here. And the core of this cold air mass relative to normal will be centered right over the Mid-Atlantic region come Saturday morning as Christmas Eve morning. Temperatures very likely in the single digits along a good part of the I-95 corridor region from D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City. And to go along with those very, very bitter cold air temperatures will be strong winds Winds can gust past 50 miles per hour, both on the front side of this Arctic blast and behind the frontal system. There'll be a shift in the direction from east to southeast later today and tonight into the west to northwest direction following the passage of that surface front, and winds will remain quite strong Friday night and Saturday, producing dangerously low wind chill values well below zero. Again, the combination of the very, very cold air temperature and strong winds, probably 40 miles per hour or so on Saturday. And we'll continue into Saturday night, and here we are all the way to Sunday morning, Christmas morning. Again, one of the coldest Christmas Eves and Christmas days we've had in the eastern half of the nation in many, many years. In fact, this will be some of the coldest air we've seen in much of the eastern U.S. in several years, with single digits all along the I-95 corridor region, both on Saturday morning and again on Sunday morning. Well, let's walk through the surface forecast maps from the 0Z operational run of the GFS last night. Again, Arctic air is plunging to the south and it's spreading to the east as we begin the day. Meanwhile, low pressure is intensifying in the eastern U.S. It takes a track inland over the Appalachians, and that allows for a warmer setup for later today into tonight. Primarily a soaking rain event, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, later today, tonight, into tomorrow morning, and it can include some thunderstorm activity. It can include some localized flash flooding. Meanwhile, by later today and tonight, blizzard conditions extend all the way from the Tennessee Valley up across the upper part of the Midwest, with an intensifying low pressure area right along that Arctic boundary zone. And here we are now into tomorrow morning. This is 7 a.m. forecast map from last night's 0Z GFS model run. That frontal system tomorrow morning will be right in this location right here, and it will move rapidly to the east, clearing the I-95 corridor region during the morning hours and off the eastern seaboard by midday, early afternoon. And take a look at this pressure gradient right in this region. We've talked about the difference in pressure from this very strong high and intensifying low right in this region right here. That pressure gradient between those two systems is extremely strong, some of the strongest I've ever seen for this time of the year. When you see the isobar pattern that tight here, we're looking at the black lines that represent equal pressure. When it's that tight, the winds are stronger and stronger. The tighter the pressure gradient, the stronger the winds. And this is just amazing across much of the Great Lakes region, centered on Michigan, Ohio. Not only can there be heavy snow bands at this particular time, with bitter cold air moving over the still relatively warm Great Lakes, but the winds can be 50, 60, 70 mile per hour or so. When you see this kind of a tight pressure gradient, that will cause blizzard conditions in much of the Great Lakes region again throughout the day on Friday into Friday night and even into the day on Saturday. This front then blasts through the I-95 corridor region, and there certainly can be a burst of snow, producing a quick coating to an inch or two in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, and really, I believe, all the way to the coast. There can be a burst of snow and a small accumulation. Winds will be very, very strong, continuing later tomorrow throughout the Great Lakes, and even in the mid-Atlantic Northeast, you can see wind gusts of 50 miles per hour or so, potentially damaging wind gusts in this upcoming event. And here we get to Saturday morning. Again, expect single-digit lows up and down the I-95 corridor, and still very windy, producing dangerous wind chill values well below zero. We'll push ahead into Sunday morning, Christmas morning. Still very, very cold and still quite windy as well. Any neighborhood that tries to light luminaries on Saturday night, Christmas Eve, may have difficulty because the winds will still be quite strong and again producing dangerous wind chill values. So we're talking again, we've mentioned this past several videos, some of the coldest weather we've seen on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in many, many years throughout much of the eastern half of the nation. Well, let's take a look specifically at the eastern Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast U.S., just to take a look at the actual air temperatures. These are not anomalies. These are 2-meter air temperatures as we progress through the next 36, 48 hours or so. For an example here, we're looking at this model grid point in the southern part of Chester County. Starting off the day here on Thursday, 32 degrees in southern Chester County, southeastern PA. Let's move forward here and look at this surge of temperatures into the 50s across the eastern part of the Mid-Atlantic region. That's out ahead of the Arctic blast, and with increasingly strong east to southeast winds later today into tonight. A surge of temperature, a surge of warmth into the 50s. And then we go into early tomorrow morning, and take a look here for an example. 42 degrees at this model grid point at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Then 6 hours later, 18 degrees. That is quite an impressive drop in temperatures in a short period of time, going from the 40s to the teens. And again, that can result in a quick freeze up, any wet spots on roadways from the prior rainfall, and it can also be timed with a burst of snow that could produce a quick coating to an inch. In other words, could very well be difficult travel conditions for a while, especially late morning, midday, early afternoon hours on Friday in the Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S. And look at some of these temperatures here by midday on Friday, at or below zero. And this Arctic blast just extends all the way into the eastern seaboard area. Here we are after midnight, already down to single digits. So this same model grid point, southern Chester County, saw temperatures jump into the 50s by early tonight, down to 7 degrees by late tomorrow night, early Saturday morning. This is Christmas Eve morning. Expect single digits in much of the I-95 corridor region throughout Pennsylvania, much of the Mid-Atlantic region, and very cold all the way down to the coast. We'll go ahead here. Temperatures will struggle to escape the teens on Saturday afternoon in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. And again, remember, winds will be some 40 miles per hour or so, with some dangerous wind chill values. We'll go all the way into Christmas morning. Still bitter cold, and still a very noticeable northwest wind will make the air temperature feel even colder, with those much lower wind chill values going right through the upcoming weekend. Well, let's wrap up with the snowfall forecast by last night's Zero-Z GFS model run. This goes all the way out to Sunday morning, Christmas morning. And again, I wanted to point out, as I did yesterday, that some areas do not get all that much snow here out. Let's say, for example, the upper part of the Mississippi Valley, but they will experience blizzard conditions for a short period of time with excessive winds, very, very cold conditions, and brief period of heavy snowfall, producing just a few inches of snow. But over Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, several inches of snow, all out blizzard conditions with, again, 50, 60, 70 mile per hour winds. There can be some significant snow over the higher elevations of eastern West Virginia, far western Virginia as well, and maybe even some snow on the order of a coating to an inch or two, all the way to the I-95 corridor, and really, I believe, all the way to the coast. The GFS does not have it on this particular model run, let's say, to the Jersey coastline, but I certainly think that is on the table as well. And some of the higher elevations of the Northeast U.S. will get some significant snowfall as well. So this Arctic blast that has been moving across the nation reaches the eastern U.S. on Friday, leading to some of the coldest weather we've seen in many, many years across the eastern half of the nation for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.